Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to a new episode of Psychedelic. I am your host, Mike Brancatelli. How you doing? Good. Glad you're doing good. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today. We got a great show today, and thanks for stopping by. If you're new and you're checking out the show for the first time, thank you. Thank you for deciding to choose to let me invade your ear space for 2 hours or so, pretty much, or whatever the time period is, because you know what? There's a lot of choices out there. There's so many podcasts out there. So thank you so much for choosing this one. And yeah, I mean, this is a show. It's Psychedelic. I guess that's what I am. I am that thing. But this is a show that doesn't only focus on psychedelics, but focuses on many things. And really, I guess the subtitle of the show is Psychedelic: Liberty, Psychedelics, Self-Improvement. And I kind of those are sort of the three areas that I consider to be the most important things to me, and the most interesting things really to me. Right? I mean, liberty, I think, is just, we need that. We have to preserve liberty, cognitive liberty, freedom of mind, freedom of thought, freedom of spirit, freedom to choose what to put into your body. These freedoms must be upheld, and they're super, super important to preserving peace and happiness and human flourishing on the planet. So, I can go on and on, and I can make this intro. If you guys listen to the show before, you know how much I can go on about freedom and liberty, but I feel that is, without that, we get into some scary territory, and I think it's really important. And psychedelics, yeah, I mean, psychedelics, what are they? What are psychedelics? I mean, it's just a chemical, right? That you put into your body, which is also chemicals, and some of them come from plants. I mean, really, everything comes from the natural world, and then we synthesize things in labs sometimes, but everything is of the earth. We are of the earth, and our freedom to interact with different sorts of liquids and materials and vapors is our choice to do so. And the great benefit of doing so, there's so many of them. There's so many benefits. And for, thousands of years, our ancestors have considered to be psychedelics and substances that provide individuals with a feeling of direct experience, and a feeling of altered states of consciousness. Those things have been considered to be the greatest gift to all of humankind, and they were revered. And today, we're living in a world that's not so much in tune, shall we say, and in harmony with the balance of the Force. No, I'm sorry, I got Star Wars on my mind, but hey, great movie to draw comparisons from and make analogies to, right? Because that is, in a way, kind of what we're dealing with. It's the reason why I love Star Wars so much is because it is truly the greatest. It's the greatest myth of all time. It's the greatest tale that's ever been told, and it's told in the most interesting way. The struggle between good and evil, and finding balance and meaning in it all. All right, I went a little off topic there, but hey, that's what you guys tune in for, right? To hear these things. And self-improvement, the third thing, right? Because we can't change things that are outside of our own, skin sacks if we don't change what's in our skin sacks. It's and that is another benefit that psychedelics can provide you with, is they can provide you with the introspection and the inward journeying needed to kind of, to go spelunking into the cavernous, infinite pit that is human consciousness. What is it? What's going on? What are all these thoughts that are just racing around in my head? What's happening here? So how can we, and is there a way that we can control or gain some sort of power over that? Can we choose to improve our own lives by making better choices, by doing things like maybe breath work, breathing practices, walks in nature, meditating, just being kinder and doing things for people that are in need, eating healthier, living in a more, like I said, in a more balanced, more in tune, in a more harmonious way. Those things can all help us gain some perspective on what it means to be a little hairy sack of meat, that's making small mouth noises, floating on a rock in the infinite sea of what we call the universe, basically, as far as we know, in the middle of a empty lot where there is no one else but us and the animals and the plants on this amazing, on this beautiful, on this psychedelic journey we call life. I mean, life is psychedelic. Everything is psychedelic. It's crazy. We have to be grateful, and that's in that area of what I consider to be so important. And look, I'm no guru, I'm no shaman, I'm no wise elder, I'm no expert. I'm a 30-year-old fucking idiot who just feels like these are important and interesting things, and I want to work on them. And I want to work on them and improve life so I can reduce the amount of suffering in my own life and increase the amount of pleasure in my own life, and feel like I made a difference and help maybe alleviate others' suffering so that we can all have a fun time here. This life is a trip, man. It should be if we have the power, the tools, the skills, and the resources to help other people who don't have those available and desperately they're just yearning for a better life, a better way. Well, it's up to us to do it. And I'm proud to say today's guest is doing it, man. He's fucking doing it. I love chatting with this guy. He's a great guy. You guys are going to see this is a great episode. I mean, this is, talk about someone with their head screwed on right. It's just like, I really just love. So the guest is Brian Normand. He's the co-founder and director of Psymposia. And if you don't know about Psymposia, you need to know about Psymposia. I'm going to put all the links and everything in there. Psymposia is a media and events group. They share stories and fresh perspectives about the emerging science and social and political issues surrounding psychedelics and psychoactive drugs and policy reform, harm reduction. They get into all kinds of stuff about the good, the bad, everything. They're not biased in any way. They were founded in 2014, and they've been doing big things. Like I was talking about that microdosing event that I attended a couple weeks ago, or about a month ago in Brooklyn. It was so awesome to be around our people. Their events are great. Their articles that they published are great, and everybody that works there is really great. That I've met so far, at least. Mike. I don't know how to say his last name properly. Actually, Mike Margolis or Mike Margolis. Correct me if I'm for the correction on that. Sorry about that, Mike. But love Mike. Mike was a guest on this show. I think episode 24 or 5 or something like that. And we were talking about cognitive liberty. These guys are definitely champions of cognitive liberty. Mike is a great guy. He's always posting really interesting things on Facebook. He's always asking interesting questions. And thinking in a really interesting way. Mike's their expansion director. So just shout out to that Psymposia team, Brian, Mike, and Brett, and everyone over there that's just putting this whole thing together and really making, this is, if we're in an info war, as Alex Jones would say, infowar.com, male vitality formula. Buy my supplements and if we're in an info, I mean, if we're living in the age of the internet, and there's so much stuff out there, and there's so the old media has their dinosaur claws on everything, and there's all this this they're dying, they're dying, and they're gasping with their last breaths. But with all the propaganda, fake news, misinformation, and just not even that, just the choice of what to report on, right? Like you turn on CNN, MSNBC, Fox, or whatever, you go on Vox, go online, go on any of these sites. What are they reporting about? It's all fear-based. It's all try to make you scared so they could sell you pills so you can make the pills can make you happy, but they don't really do anything, so they keep you kind of sick, so you have to keep going to the doctor and paying high insurance prices for the fucking goddamn horrible medical coverage, and the wars keep going on, and they're stealing your tax dollars to pay for all this shit, and it's like everybody's got a vested interest in screwing you, but not new media. New media is the only chance that we have in our fight against winning hearts and minds and converting people to what we see as a healthy, true way of living and existing in the world, where everybody has a chance and an opportunity to live a happy, healthy, prosperous life of peace and fulfillment, with life, liberty, and happiness, the pursuit of it for all. But this is really important. Psymposia.com. These guys are doing big things. I really love their organization, and it's just I can't say enough good things about them. So like I said, I mean, this is where it's at. This is what's going on. This is the turning of the tide, and these guys are right in the middle of it. And I'm proud to have Brian Norman on the show. Brian Norman, like I said, co-founder, lead designer, webmaster extraordinaire of Psymposia. He considers himself to be a green thumb. I believe he went to school for botany. I think we talk about that in the show. And he's just a tremendous guy. So we're gonna get into this episode. It's a good one. I picked a nice outro song as well. So stick around to the end, because I feel like you guys might enjoy the outro song. Thank you for the support on Patreon. My God, you guys are fucking awesome. Talking about this new media revolution, how we're gonna turn the tide and win. I feel so warm and gooey inside. I want to say all lovey-dovey, mushy things to each and every one of you, because it just means so much to me that you would do these two things that mean so much to me. One, going on to iTunes and writing a review and leaving a 5-star rating and writing a review. I mean, I go on there, I read those reviews, and I read what you guys write, and I read what you guys say, and I read what you say when you email me and when you message me on Facebook and everything, and it's just like, I'm so humbled. Like I feel like I don't deserve it. It's like too much. Like I mean, I want it. Please keep doing it. But I feel like it's I'm just glad. I'm happy. I'm happy that you guys are getting good stuff out of this, and I can't stress this enough. The communication between me and you is what makes this show. You guys make this show, so keep it up. Keep telling me what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, what you'd like to see more of, all that stuff. I'm not one of these people that you should ever feel nervous about messaging. Oh, I don't know what to say. Should I say this? Should I not say that? Just say it to me, man. I'm just a fucking guy with I bleed the same blood as you. I breathe the same air as you. There's no difference between me and you. Message me. Tell me how you really feel, and we'll figure this shit out. And if you love the show and you want to leave a nice glowing rating and review that'll help us get more guests and bigger guests, like people that I have in the pipeline, like Dr. Carl Hart and Jesse Ventura and Duncan Trussell and other people like that. We want to get them on this show. We want to talk to them. And leaving those ratings and reviews on iTunes really, really help, because they go on there, they see, oh my God, look at this show. It must be incredible. I got to do it, right? And it is incredible because of you guys. The core audience of this show is dope as fuck. I would love to get together with all of you one day and just party and trip and fucking, have fun. And thank you for the Patreon people. And you guys rock. You guys rule. You guys roll. You guys are everything, man. Thanks to my newest Patreon supporters, Bud. Shout out to Bud. Bud's the man. Bud is supporting us now for $5 a month. So thanks, Bud. And thanks for your post, by the way, too. Thanks for your input. Love input. Love feedback. Love communication. I keep saying it, but I really do. I mean, it's kind of funny. I was a communication major in college, and at the time, I just thought it was an easy way to get an A. But turns out I'm really putting it to use. And I just, if there's anything more important than what I was talking about before about freedom, liberty, self-improvement, and psychedelics, it's communication. Clear, direct, truthful communication between people is so important. And thanks for Rhiannon. Man, I'm an idiot, guys. I don't know how to pronounce names. Rhiannon Adams. Oh, I said your full name. Sorry about that. I hope you don't get mad at me. Pledged $1. Thank you so much. You pledged $1. That's amazing. That's amazing. It's amazing to me that you would take one of your little George Washington Federal Reserve notes that's just burning holes in your pocket and throw it my way. I really appreciate that. You guys, you can donate as little as $1 a month. It evens out to like 3 cents a day. I mean, you spend more every day on like coffee and subway rides and whatever. So it means a lot to me. I really, really appreciate it. And by the way, there's so much bonus stuff now. Like me and Ed Liu of Psychedelic Milk pretty much are doing a second podcast every week only for Patreon members. And it's video too, so you get to see my pretty chubby, ugly mug. And and then I have much more bonus things in the work. I know, Bart, I owe you a t-shirt, Bart. I owe you a t-shirt. It's coming your way, man. Message me and let me know what size and the colors are black, white, and gray, and it has the Mycadelic logo, and then on the back it says #mind rights. We got to fight for the rights of our mind, just the same way that we fought for the rights for women to vote, for LGBTQ people to have equal rights, for people of color to have equal rights. We need to fight for something that protects, that represents all of us, and that is the right to our mind. Do not have our minds be infringed upon, and for us to alter our minds in whichever way we see fit, as long as we're not causing harm to anybody else. Thank you so much. Thanks to the Patreon subscribers. Thanks to all you guys who go and leave reviews and blah, 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 blah. You're sick of hearing this from me. But first, one last thing before I go. I almost forgot. There is bonus material for this episode on Patreon. And I almost forgot about this one, but go check it out. It's Brian Tells a Psychedelic Story. So at the end of this episode, after you listen to that dope outro song, go over to Patreon and throw $1. Get access to it. Get the bonus material. Come on, do it. Just do it. You know you want to. All right. Thank you so much. Without further ado, Brian Normand, everybody.
Psychedelics are illegal not because a loving government is concerned that you may jump out of a third-story window. Psychedelics are illegal because they dissolve opinion structures and culturally laid down models of behavior and information processing. They open to us the possibility that everything we know is wrong.
We don't need new laws that control our consciousness and rigidly place it in a prison.
Cognitive liberty. The fact that as adults, if we're not hurting anybody else, we should have the right to explore the contours of our own consciousness without any mediation or legislation on the part of somebody else.
Reject authority. Authority is a lie.
Or is it perception?
Information is power, but we have to seize the opportunity. The opportunity.
Being creative with people in room.
Definitely. I think that's so important. Speaking of being creative with people in a room, that's just a good segue to talk about like what you guys do at Psymposia. Like you bring that element to fruition. It's so fucking cool what you guys do. I had such an awesome time at the event, the Horizons After Party microdosing event. I saw you running around, you know, taking care of everything. There were so many people I wanted to talk to and stuff, and I got a lot of good convos in, a lot of good hanging out and meeting people, and it's just so nice to be in that environment with all of our people, you know, and just moving and grooving and jiving with everybody there. It was so it's a pleasure. I really love what you guys do over there. So you know, it's nice to bring that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's nice to bring that element of community to it.
Yeah, we try to balance things. We don't want to just be just a digital group. I think it's important to have real life events as well. So yeah, we're always getting out there and coming up with new things. And Mike, my partner Mike, he's been the one that's really globetrotting. There's so many conferences now. There's so many conferences, so many events all the time now. So he's been the one doing a lot of the, you know, boots on the ground, getting out, meeting the new groups, getting, you know, just different people all over the place now. Yeah,
traveling the globe. I met Mike last year and had him on the show. He was awesome. He came in. We were in the studio and we had a good chat right before the Horizons conference last year. So that's cool, man. So how did you guys all? I kind of want to know about like how you guys all started Psymposia and how that happened. But I guess maybe before that, like, who is Brian Norman? Like, where did you get? How did you get interested in all this stuff? Like, what was your story of getting introduced to this kind of psychedelic crowd and all this business?
It just kind of happened.
Yeah.
I was interested in. I got interested, I guess, in psychedelics only by reading about them, though, when I was younger. Teenager, you know, kind of just being introduced. You're just learning, you know, you're just growing up and learning, and you start hearing about them. So you get interested in it. You get interested in what is this,
right?
You know,
what
you
was
try to find out about them. I guess I always had an interest in reality and in nature and you know, in concepts of deep time. I kind of grew up with that attitude, you know.
That's awesome.
So I almost feel like it was kind of a natural extension. And then I went to Catholic school for a while, and that fucks with your head for, you know, while you're growing up. And I think there's a lot of underlying concepts in themselves that are, you know, philosophically really fascinating. And I think that a lot of you want to call it psychedelic philosophy or whatever. I think it's really a natural extension.
Yeah.
You know,
what were some of the things that you were reading earlier on that like really sparked your curiosity?
I'd read some sci-fi. I some of the early stuff would be Huxley stuff. You know, he's probably the person who you move to, I think. You know, the Doors of Perception is
right.
And like the cornerstone. And you know, you read that, sits in the back of your mind. I remember hearing about someone who I knew when I was, I don't know, this is probably in the 90s at some point when I was a teenager. Someone had mentioned McKenna, and it kind of just stuck in the back of my mind. I never knew who he was. I was probably scared of mushrooms at that time. Who's this weirdo talking this way? I do remember, I have an early memory about someone talking about McKenna, though.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I'm like, right, like I'm always very curious to see, like, how does this sort of kind of fringe radical sort of stuff that isn't really incorporated into the mainstream discussion make its way to people's minds. Because, for someone like me, it didn't make its way to my mind till I was like in my 20s, like mid 20s. And but the feeling had always been there, like the curiosity had always been there, but it just never made its way to me. It never cracked through the barriers of my kind of social environment, the people that I knew and the people that I was around, my friends, my family, that sort of thing. So was that sort of the case for you? Like, did you have a good
100%?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that what the case was is that I had my own personal interest, and I knew about it intellectually, right? And I had that curiosity about it, but it wasn't until probably 10 years later or so that I was physically in in a group of people that had access to it.
Right.
So I probably had an interest for, I don't know, 8 or 10 years before I ever did anything. And a lot of it, what I guess got me going down that path was when I was growing weed. And then now you're in more of an environment where you're likely to come across people who are going to have mushrooms, or going to have something.
Mm-hmm.
So I had never, up until then, I wasn't really in the environment of people where I would come across that. It was just an interest where, I'd read about it or get books about it or listen to music that you can tell is influenced by it, or just be into Bill Hicks or so you're exposed, but you might not have access. So for me, yeah, it took a little while.
Yeah, music is such a huge part of it. It's like I feel that, I don't know. It's sort of with the sort of kind of psychedelic science sort of movement sort of thing happening right now. I feel like that's kind of taken center stage as far as like where people's interests are and stuff. But yeah, what the music is super important. What kind of stuff were you getting into back then?
Mostly for me, it's Tool. Tool did it for me. Pretty much Anima, and then Latter. I had already been into them, and then Lateralis came out, and I was like, what the fuck? This is just, you just start. I was, at the time that album came out, I was 17. I had just turned 17 when that came out in 2001, and you're so impressionable at that age, and you can't believe that you were interested in something, and then a band that you love was like kind of comes out with this totally psychedelic album.
Yeah, seems like synchronistic.
Yeah, Alex Gray on it, and then who's this guy? Oh, this is the same guy who's on. Actually, I don't know if it was out at that time. I don't know what year that Spirit Molecule had come out. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it was about the same time. Yeah,
it was around that same time. So then you start seeing, the artist who did Tools also did this book. Oh, what's the connections here? And then you get more into the lyrics, and then you listen to their older album, and there's Bill Hicks on it, and this guy talks about LSD a lot, and so it just like piques your interest, and it did it in a way for me where these were influential artists and figures, and so it was a cool context to get interested in it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it just goes from there, I think. And then I kind of, and then so for me, I eventually get into marijuana and get into growing and just doing all that, and then I don't know, it's like, yeah, marijuana is kind of a gateway to psychedelics. It is. You just get more. You just get a little deeper into it.
There you go, folks. Marijuana is a gateway drug from the founder of Psymposia.
Yeah. Well, when people say that, I'm like, yeah, it is.
Yeah, I
think it's like one
greater
of the first
things.
ones. Yeah, I think it's one of the first ones. I don't look at that I don't look at that in a bad way at
Right.
all.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. And it is. I mean, it really is the first thing that, for me, it was the first thing that gave me another perception, like another feeling, a different view, something that was, but, I was always doing it. Like I always talk about like my use and stuff when I was like a teenager. It was kind of unconscious use because it was seen as this taboo thing. So it was like, yeah, we're kind of like being badasses, like rolling a joint before going into school. It was like,
Right.
it was that kind of thing. And, but then you do kind of, it does open you up, and it does make you a little bit more creative and a little bit more curious and a little bit more sensual and empathetic. And so, or it can, for some people, it did for me. And it definitely led me to find other things. So that's kind of the path. You mentioned that you were growing it. Was that like a big thing for you? Because I know,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
That was basically, I hadn't really gone to college at the time. I did, but I only went for a couple of years and then stopped. That was like my real college years. That kind of replaced my college years. I did it for about 4.5 years or so.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And for me, that was like really learning the process. It was learning about just all aspects of not just growing weed, but growing plants, and be able to think in the future and how are you gonna do harvest, thinking about all these different aspects of timing and watching the plants grow, observing them. Everything that you tweak is going to result in it's going to change the plants. And so you start learning, you go as deep as you want, you go as deep as you want into plant science. And so, I get really interested in not just marijuana, but plants in general. And, just being a crazy person, carving up, outdoor lawns and planting tons of different things and just experimenting. You just experiment. If you want to learn how to grow plants, just do it. Just throw in seeds and observe and watch and see what works.
Right.
See what works, see what doesn't work. Then remember the next year, do it a little bit differently. And you really learn that way.
And you're from where?
I'm from Massachusetts.
You're from so you're doing this like at your parents' house in Massachusetts, like in their tomato garden. Like, hey, Mom, I got like a nice dank bud growing out there.
Oh no, I did it totally secretive in an apartment I had in my closet.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm getting. What is this? Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
Distracted.
Normal part of everyday life, so it's fine.
Just digital notifications coming everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing it. In secret at first, and then I did a couple runs, and then in my closet, and then I ended up renting this big ass property to do it in.
Oh wow! Okay, so you took it to the next level.
I took it to the next level really fast. Okay. Really fast. Now that I look back at it, I look back at it and say, "What the fuck are you doing, man? You had like, I don't know." I look back and say, I would not do that again.
Right. Well,
time. Amazing at the time.
Of course, hindsight is always 20/20, right? I mean, it's like if only we could know what we know now, then it would be amazing, right? That would be some kind of trick. But so, what was it though that was about? What happened? Like, what was it that didn't? I mean, did it not fulfill what you thought that it would fulfill, or?
In growing?
Yeah, like you said you went too fast, or you look back now, you would have done it different or something.
I probably wouldn't take risks like that now, especially risks with the law and getting busted. And obviously, you just look back and you say, wow, I take a huge risk here. I'm lucky that I'm not sitting in prison right now.
Yeah. So what? Yeah, exactly. Like I actually happened to listen to a podcast that you did with Duncan Duncan Trussell, and I heard you talking about this story. I don't remember exactly what you were talking about, but so that is what happened then, right? Is that do you feel comfortable sharing that story again?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I ended up getting raided and busted and prosecuted in 2012. So when I look back at myself in 2008 when I was doing it, you can't. It's just funny that it's the same person. It's me,
Hmm.
to make those things like, oh, I'm gonna go rent this house and I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna grow X amount of plants. I'm gonna do 3 or 4 turnovers a year, and I wouldn't do that now.
Right.
I would do it only legally now. But there's a like you were saying with smoking weed when you're younger, there's that appeal to it that
Right.
this is the pirate life.
Hmm.
This is the underground. Fuck the law. Fuck these people who, the law is wrong. And I'm going to, you know, give a middle finger to the system.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of that goes with it.
Yeah. I'm such a I don't know. Sometimes I think I'm just like a real stupid asshole sometimes because I really still have that attitude a lot. I really do.
I think it's important to keep that attitude
Yeah.
for certain things. I think it's super important to keep that attitude. It can keep you grounded in a sense. It keep you from, I don't know, taking risks like that is important. I think they need to be calculated though, instead
Sure.
of just being, you know, uh, kind of carefree early 20-year-old guy style,
Right.
which
Yeah.
is kind of reckless at times.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Because you feel. I mean, it's. I guess when we're young, it's kind of, and especially if you're being successful and you're putting out a good product and people are happy and you're making money and you're doing good, it's like, it could, and you could feel like you're doing good, like you actually are doing good. You're making a beautiful plant that alleviates suffering and pain and gives people a break from normal grind of reality, and all the good things that we love about these amazing substances and plants. And so you're actually putting good into the world, and then to have the long arm of the law step on your neck with their boots, and then it becomes real and you're like, oh shit, I forgot these assholes are in charge, and it can come crashing down. But maybe we should talk about that, because that's something that we all encounter. I mean, with everything that we do, whether it's talking about these things or making the substances. And I know recently, I think you had mentioned that you attended this catharsis on the mall, right?
Yeah, that was last week. So it was a week ago, a
So
little over a week ago.
what is that all about? Talk about that. I know that takes place
Well,
down in DC.
yeah, they started out. This is the third one. The first one was uh, focused on more of the drug war,
Hmm.
and they have a different theme every year. So this year it was more focused on women's rights and women's issues,
Hmm.
and so they kind of they'll attach a different social theme to it each year. So yeah, I was there with Mike. Mike was doing a talk with some of the Maps crew there. Uh, our friend had organized a talk there. But yeah, it's right on the mall. It was a good time. It's freezing there, but it was a great time.
So yeah, so what is it like all about though? I mean, I guess I think I saw a little bit, because I try to attend as much as I can, but it can be difficult at times. But it's basically just kind of like a vigil of healing. Is that right?
Sure, yeah, they do. It's a Burning Man style event. So there's a little bit of everything. And then they have a burn at on the Saturday night. They do a burn. There were several thousand people there. Um, and then they always run into issues with DC government.
Hmm.
So this year they were supposed to do a big woman statue, and at the last, I think like literally at the last second, they pulled the plug on it. And so
the event organizers pulled the plug on it?
No, the I don't know if it was park services or some bureaucratic group.
Right.
They still had to burn. Anyways. So yeah, it's been going 3 years now. I don't know. There was a lot of people. I would say this year was I was there. I've been all 3 years. I'd say this year. I don't know. I don't know what their attendance was, but it was a lot of people there.
Yeah. It's and so when you say, because I've never been to Burning Man,
I haven't either.
Okay. Well, I would love to go. I hope this year coming up. One of my big goals is to try and get out to more events and more things, and attend more of these functions. But when you say do a burn, what does that mean?
They have a sectioned off, a big sectioned off area, and they have the first year they burnt a temple. They had a temple that was the artist created this cool temple, and they burnt that. And,
okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So this year it was they had this other temple, and they deconstructed parts of it and stacked those parts up. So it was this big bonfire.
Okay, right. So it's like the most literal burn. Yeah. Okay, I was thinking about something. I don't know what came to my mind, but yeah, right, exactly. That's what they do at Burning Man. So they kind of take that to DC and do it right there. I mean, it's such a cool concept to me. What do you think about that? I heard you, again, I'll reference Duncan's podcast because that's where I heard you talk the most about this stuff. I really liked what you were saying about the kind of political climate and everything, because I tend to agree with you. But I mean, you guys are kind of out there on the front lines, with Psymposia and putting out all the content that you do and the events that you do. What do you think about kind of what's going on? Do you see? I mean, obviously, I think there's progress being made, right? Like there's more of an acceptance of this kind of stuff happening.
Yeah, totally. I think a lot of people are interested in it. I think a lot of people know about it, and even if they don't really know about it, they've heard about it in some way. I talked to the guy at 7-Eleven today near my house about this.
You did?
He asked me. Yeah, it was awesome. It was great.
Nice.
I love interactions like that of the people who you least expect.
Yes.
Because people ask what I do, and so I say, yeah, well, I work in drug policy, do this, blah 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 blah, and a lot of people are informed in some way about it, and so it's great having those bridges and being able to really talk openly with people. Like I mentioned to him, I was like, I always try to ground it in science, because that's like one of the only ways you can really talk to people.
Yeah.
It's very common ground. It's one of our common languages now. And yeah, he was aware of stuff that was going on at Hopkins, and so it's really fascinating. It's very fascinating on the people who you least expect. And so it is increasing it's changing. The field is changing. Like you were saying, the dominant way to talk about, and I just said this, the dominant way to talk about psychedelics is through science now.
Right.
It's not music.
Yeah.
It's through science. And it's funny that that's the dominant lens that we use now.
Well, yeah, because it's like, what does Rick Doblin always say? He's like an outlaw who went straight or something, or is that what he says? Like he's like, I still consider myself like an outlaw who went legit. Like it's like we can kind of talk about this stuff now, and because the psychedelic explosion of the 60s has kind of reverberated through all the different areas of society and manifested through technology and all of these things, where now and science and the study of it is kind of a way that we can legitimize, like put a suit and tie on it, if you will, and say, hey, look, we're
Sure.
an acceptable bunch of people,
Which is cool and it's annoying. There's aspects of
definitely.
that cool, and there's aspects of that just piss me off.
For sure.
Trying to play.
Yeah, let's get into that. Let's get into what pisses you off. I want to hear that.
Have you been reading? Have you saw Rick Strassman's blog? He's been writing a lot of articles.
Yes, I have actually. I have. Yeah.
He has a lot of fascinating dissent on there. He's been dissenting a lot about mainstreaming psychedelics, and we're going to be republishing some of the stuff very soon. We've been emailing with him because it's one thing that we've really wanted to do is have dissenting voices on Psymposia. I get so bored when it's just the same fucking points of view all the time. It's just the same thing. At the end of the day, I want to see these things move through medicalization. I do want to see that. I do want to see there be systems set up so someone that doesn't know about it, if they have a certain condition, they can get seen. Okay, so I want to see that, right? But there's plenty of room to debate and disagreements and constructive criticism and just an analysis of things. And there's not that much of that, really. There's not that much of that. And so I love when there's other people who we can bullshit about, oh yeah, this and that. But yeah, Rick's blog is very interesting. He has a series up right now that's about mainstreaming psychedelic medicine. Just the whole concept of mainstreaming. And maybe let's think about some things first. He has a lot of critiques on the biomedical tower of kind of dominating things. Science has kind of dominated a lot of the argument, So,
right.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a little bit more outside the box thinking in some of this.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. And I remember, I think I read the first two that he published, and I loved them. And I think he has 2 or 3, maybe more, that he's published since then. So I got to get caught up on those. But yes, this is so important to me because I feel like I don't know, it's this strange kind of duality that exists where you said it's like, yes, this science is important, and yes, this is something that's, I want to see people have access to these things who really need them, people that have like soldiers with PTSD and whatnot, and people who have trauma and these sorts of things, and let's help people. Yes, for sure. But there is also this dogma that comes along with the religion of science and the materialist reductionist model of, the kind of white lab coat setting. And psychedelics can be so much more than that. They don't need to be confined to this narrow-minded kind of socially acceptable suit and tie view, but I get why they are, because that's kind of the way in, right? That's kind of where we are right now in this like paranoid, fearful culture, that there's this mentality that like, if we can just get the foot in and we can dress ourselves up to be acceptable, then we can get some things going. To me, like when I first got turned on to this stuff, I was just totally like 1960 Summer of Love like mentality. Like I was just like, this is free your mind, break out of the matrix, like fucking drop acid every day, like drop acid, not bombs. And I still kind of feel that way to a certain extent. And I hope to get Paul Austin on the show, because me and him go back and forth and talk about this stuff, where I kind of was criticizing microdosing, and that's why I liked attending that event. But like my whole thing about that is that I don't like, where I stand with this is that like the psychedelic experience, what it can provide you with is so much more than making you be like a consumer, like a productive, like, you know, efficient worker. You know, it's just, you know, staying stuck into that system. You know, as like a, you know, I'm a big fan of McKenna, and like he's always talking about these things are deconditioning agents and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm so glad that Rick Strassman's writing about this, because he's a prominent person with a voice, and he can talk about these sorts of things in probably a more intelligent way than I can. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand.
Yeah. Well, I think they can be conditioning agents too. They can be tools of brainwashing. It depends who's preaching,
right.
and depends who's listening. I think that they're really double-edged like that. You know, I think they're great with the placebo
Yeah.
effect. And, you know, it really depends who's using them and for what reason.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
mean, yeah, I guess it's kind of like, it's like the kind of Silicon Valley tech thing. I mean, you're right. There is no like good or bad necessarily. It's kind of a mixed bag of both. But I think that there's just something strange about like taking psychedelics to try and like invent like a better app or something like that. It's like, well, what are we really doing here? You know, like, shouldn't we be thinking about like the models in which we construct our society and the relationships in which we have, and the kind of chaos that's being spun out into the world by kind of our unconscious consumer behaviors and habits? Or maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Well,
Maybe that's
I
just
think
my
it's
own
super
thing.
interesting. I think it's interesting how different types of people interact with it in a different way for a different purpose. I don't know if
Right.
there's one reason. Yeah, I agree with you. I wasn't attracted to them. I wasn't attracted to them for becoming a better worker. Fuck that. I don't want to be a worker. I want to create my own reality and do what I'm doing. Make up my own rules of what I'm doing. I'm not interested in microdosing so I can make a better fucking app for some asshole corporation. You know, like
Right.
that's not what does it for me. If that does it for someone, good for them. If their life is better by doing that, and they can get by doing that, I don't have a problem. I don't have a personal problem. I don't care why people do things. You know, this is how I
Yeah.
would do them. I think it ends there. This is how I would do it. You know, I don't there's an element of that is so cliche though, you know. So it's just so goddamn cliche. Like, oh, I'm the tech guy. I'm
What?
that guy that microdoses. You know? Like,
Yeah. Well, because, you know, like the
why don't
kind
you
of the
just go do
psychedelic
real? You
scene.
just go do a big dose.
Right. Yeah.
What?
Well, see, I think that for sure. I think that like that's, you know, like if you're using them as tools to kind of expand your consciousness and think more creatively about complex problems, right? And then maybe a microdose helps you, you know, get along in your daily life and kind of be a little bit more productive, a little bit more creative, and feel a little happier, you know, maybe going into that shitty corporate environment that you don't necessarily want to be in, but you know, so they can go hand in hand. I guess they can work to try and do something greater, because the psychedelic scene was kind of birthed in that area, like that Silicon Valley area. And you know, Steve Jobs had talked about it being a huge influence on him, like LSD being like one of the most important things that he's ever done. So it's weird. It's like, it's strange. It's like we get this, you know, we get these cool inventions that are definitely birthed out of a psychedelic mindedness. But then like, I don't know, then there's like Twitter, like this, you know, like you were saying, like, you're like, I'm not much on Twitter too much. And I'm like, I'm on it way too much. And it can be like demonic, you know, how much of your soul can be sucked out of these devices, you know?
Absolutely. It's, you know, it's all day long now at this point.
All day long.
I don't know. I have no all day long of just being constantly connected to the internet. It's it's now
Right.
it's
Yeah.
pretty much fully integrated into everything. But yeah, look, I don't microdose. I don't if that helps someone out, great. If that's what helps you out, that's great. And I there's a lot of people who it helps them out. At least based on stories that I've heard. I know there's concerns about it. We don't have any data on what the long term effects of it
Mhm.
is. We do know that a higher dose can definitely be therapeutic. We don't, it's just anecdotal. It's anecdotal. Um, Whether what the long term effects of microdosing are seems to be pretty positive for a lot of people. We don't know what the say heart effects are. That's just not there. Anyone who claims that they know what they're talking about with that, they don't. And we just don't know. So if I was talking to someone the other day, and she had mentioned microdosing for depression. I don't know what I'm supposed to say to someone who's asking about that. I'm gonna say, well, we do know that you can be given the right circumstances, you can be helped out with a larger dose, and you may or may not have to do that again. So to me, there seems
Right.
to be potentially more benefit there. Maybe you do it once, depending on what the factors are, right, that's contributing to your situation. Um, Maybe you're depressed because of whatever's going on in the job or whatever. It's just boring. It's meaningless, garbage job. Um, Maybe you can just like kind of fix that pretty easily. You can fix that, an afternoon going to the beach or going somewhere really peaceful or having a sitter or something like that. And then, so what's the point of microdosing? What's the point of microdosing in that situation? If it only required you one time to say, oh shit, I didn't see that. I didn't think about that. So I almost feel it would be, I'm just thinking out loud right now, but I almost think it would be almost like, what's the point of taking something every other day or, whatever the schedule of microdosing is over a long period of time, if one time might be what was really needed. Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, like maybe you can totally like maybe you can have like a profound mushroom experience in the proper set and setting and really have like a positive, healing, lasting healing effect, and that might do better for you because it might make you feel like, okay, I got to change my life, I got to change things and get out of the habits that are making me depressed. Whereas maybe if you were taking a little microdosing, it would keep you in those patterns and maybe wouldn't necessarily break you out of the patterns that are making you depressed. And then you're just doing, it's like might as well just like take a Zoloft or whatever. It's like the same kind of thing. It's just like we need to take substances to make us feel like we can cope with our daily lives. Like why can't we maybe we should figure something else out? I don't know, like what are your thoughts
Maybe
about
the
that? Like where
I
like
I
I
think I
definitely suffer from depression.
I
Yeah.
think that the root causes are a lot of things. What's what are the root causes? I think it's important to address
Right.
those, or it's just kind of covering up symptoms, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's important to I think real healing is finding out what the problem is, if you can, instead of just kind of kind of coping. And I don't know. Not everybody can do that, though. Not everybody can do that. I don't think we have the system really in place whatsoever of helping
Yeah, no, we
people
don't.
out
Yeah.
who have those problems. People carrying around tremendous trauma with them all over the place, and we don't have anything for that. We're barely even acknowledging that mental health care is a thing. We don't even
Yeah.
we don't even know. It's like we don't even we barely address these things. We pretend that it's almost like we pretend that it doesn't exist, and the only time we talk about it is when someone shoots up a fucking school. That's like the only time we talk
Oh,
about mental health care.
oh
You
my
know,
God.
it's
Yeah, I
like,
know. Yeah, it's maddening. It's sickening. Really, it really gets to me. I don't know. Maybe I let it get to me too much, but it really does get to me when it's like, okay, now this is the time we can have a conversation for a couple days, and then it kind of goes away until the
yeah, for
next
one
one
news
happens, and
cycle.
it's like we're never really. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and so
yeah.
I
So
mean,
I mean, does this? Yeah, go ahead.
this is the system that, I mean, to me, this is the system that needs to change, is mental health care. And we don't, to me, I think that, I think that, I think that these plants, or, MDMA, I think they can be very helpful in changing patterns, in changing someone's story, in unlocking, um, you know, in showing you what was there, what's bothering you. It's something that you're covering up. Something that you're covering up that's just draining energy from you. It's causing you to think about it all the time. Um, and we don't have anything for this. Yeah, we have therapy. We have therapy for people, which is great, and that works for a lot of people. But I think people have a lot of suffering, like tremendous amounts of
Yeah,
childhood trauma everywhere, everywhere, and it's no surprise to me that we have the amount of suicides that we have in this country, which is like 40 to 50,000 a year. We have 50,000
hmm
overdoses now. We have, I don't even know how many cases of PTSD. It's unbelievable. Um, just people who just have carrying around depression. They get a sense of being defeated. They work in some shit job, same fucking shit every day. Yeah, that's that's why that's why I'm interested in these things. I think they can be beneficial. I think they can, one experience with them could change a lot. It can make you appreciate things. Um, it just change your consciousness for a little bit. It can have very lasting effects.
Yeah, definitely. I'm right on there. I'm right on board with you right there. I was talking to someone the other day about this, and we were kind of going back and forth, and I was saying, I think really the thing is that a lot of people don't even really know that they're suffering. Like they know they're suffering, but they don't know that it's not normal. You know what I mean? Like they just think like, oh, this is just the way it is. And I think that if you have a profound psychedelic experience, maybe you drank ayahuasca, or you did, you took some mushrooms, or you took a lot of LSD, whatever you did, that broke you out of the mold of the everyday kind of suffering that you've been existing in, and now you see things from a different vantage point, and you've experiencing things that you can't even put into words because it's a feeling that you had, and that direct experience is so powerful that it can kind of inform you. So by having that experience, like, you're now all of a sudden you're going, oh my God, there's like another room here, like the doors of perception, right? It's like, oh, there's a whole other door. There's a whole other area. And
Yeah,
that's kind of, like, yeah,
you
yeah,
had one version,
yeah.
one
I
version
just
of the
think,
story. You didn't know there was another version of that story, and there's a million
right.
versions of that story, but it's hard to access them. It's hard to get into. If you don't change your consciousness, it's very difficult to. I mean, I don't think you can. There's different methods for changing it, but you have to want to change it, or know that you can even change it. Like you're saying, most people don't know that they can change it, and
Right.
it's
Y-
it's very difficult. It's very difficult to do that if you're
Yeah.
not if you don't have a practice, meditative practice, or some sort of practice. It's very difficult, and you don't have access to certain plants. What are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do when you take out
Yeah.
healing plants from the pharmacopoeia on a 300 million person society? You're probably gonna a lot of things are going to go out of whack, I think.
Definitely. Yeah, and it's it's like the when you were just saying that right now, it reminded me of this Errol Morris, actually Hamilton's father, who had this documentary about Donald Rumsfeld, the known knowns and the known unknowns. Do you know what I'm talking about? It was
Yes.
it was it was like there's things we know, and then there's things we know we don't know, and or whatever. It was pretty kind of mind blowing. I didn't even know that was a way of thinking, but yeah, it's definitely a huge problem. It's definitely a huge problem, and we definitely don't get any help from mainstream society. People that we deem to be leaders are not leaders. They're jokes. They're just terrible excuses for human beings. And so this is the big thing that I think, you guys are doing at Psymposia is you're putting this on the table for people. You're getting this conversation happening. You're getting a guy at 7-Eleven to engage with you in a conversation about this kind of stuff, letting him know, hey, I run an organization. We do this kind of thing. So that's just fantastic that this is able to happen, and you guys are kind of moving the needle forward in terms of doing that. What are some of the big, I guess what you just kind of told me, the big thing is kind of for you, mental health, and then, how plant medicines and psychedelic substances can be a part of that, right?
I think personally for me, it's all the bullshit and suffering caused by the war on drugs. Just fucking arresting people for using drugs is crazy. All of that invisible prohibition. People don't even know we're living in prohibition, which is fucking wild. Very few people even know we live. We talk about prohibition like it's this thing that existed in the 1920s. No, we're in it. We're in it now, and it's invisible. If anybody listening hasn't watched the documentary, and I know everybody listening to this gets the war on drugs and everything, but you ever watch Eugene Jarecki's documentary, The House I Live In? You seen that?
No, I've never seen that. No.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
I'm gonna write it down right now.
And it just shows you, like, fuck, man, this thing is invisible. It's around us, and we're living with a lot of people who grew up in just tremendous propaganda in this country. Our parents kind of coming of age in 70s, 80s, living in this just dominant paradigm of drugs are bad, and it just becomes this invisible thing, and we're still in it. We're still in it, and it's very invisible. And so, I'm down here in Baltimore. The crime is just out of fucking control. People getting shot and killed every day. I don't hear people talking about the war on drugs down here. I don't hear anybody talking about it down here. And it's like this thing that it doesn't matter. People aren't conscious of it. And so that is something that I am very passionate about, is being able to talk about that and get those perspectives out there, and be able to talk to regular people about it, being able to talk to my father about it in a way that they understand, So that's one thing that I think that we're very focused on. And so we see ourselves sort of at the intersections of drug policy reform and of psychedelic science, and healing and therapy. Those for me are two of my big passions, is kind of sitting right there. Psychedelic science doesn't exist in this vacuum. It needs to be inserted. Psychedelics need to be inserted more into drug policy reform narratives. There's this sort of separation that exists between them. A lot of the drug policy conversations are still focused around marijuana. A lot of the energy is spent in marijuana legalization, and is also spent in the opioid crisis and all of that, and addiction, and that's as it should be. But for me, the healing aspect of psychedelics and helping people out who need to be helped out is something that I'm gonna get behind. As much as I can critique how things are done, critique scientists having sort of a narrow mind in a lot of these things, a lot of the language that's chosen surrounding it. That's all. At the end of the day, it's sort of petty, because I think there's something bigger that's really important, which is getting help to people who need it. And so,
Right.
So yeah, I'd like to see myself, and I'd like to see Psymposia kind of, balancing those two major things in a way that's honest, in a way that isn't cheerleading about any of it. If we see bullshit legalization stuff, I want to be able to talk about it, because there's a lot of bullshit legalization stuff out there. And
yeah, can you like what? Can you give an example?
There's just a lot of the. It's hard. You got to be patient with a lot of the marijuana stuff too, though. You got to be patient, and it's one step after the other. So I don't want to be pessimistic. I don't want to be a miserable person who is always criticizing legalization. I don't. I
Right.
really
Yeah.
don't. But it's important. It's important for me to keep. I think that marijuana activists need to keep home cultivation as a really important measure to be included in state legalization efforts. I think it's very important
Right.
to have the freedom to cultivate at home more than 6 plants, more than 12 plants. I think that you should be able to do that. A lot of people who,
unlimited plants.
If you haven't grown marijuana before, 12 plants seems like it's a lot. Is it a lot? I don't know. I guess it can be a lot. I grew a lot more than 12 plants. And I don't think that what I was doing was something that's out of control. I think having 40 or 50 plants, I think that should be legal. I honestly think that should be legal.
Right.
And that's still not legal. So yes, we have to. This is a slow process. I think those laws should be more liberalized as we move along. I think that someone should be able to have more than 6 plants. I think that if I am growing any amount of plants legally, I should be able to sell that. I shouldn't have to have any licenses to sell that. I think that it needs to also focus on individual freedoms, and so there's some bullshit that still exists there. But if you can't grow at your house in a legal state, then that's bullshit to me. I don't think that's right.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I commend you guys for having so much patience when it comes to this stuff and bringing so much balance to it, because as someone who, I'm right there with you, like I feel exactly the same way, and I have a tendency to get so worked up about it and like angry, because I'm thinking, from a moral, logical standpoint, it's like, look, like it's like we're talking, these bureaucrats, like the way that they handle things is so slow, so laborious. It's like almost like we're talking to cavemen. It's like, listen, we should be free to grow plants. Don't you get it? Like, it's like, and so there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of red tape and kind of, the movings through that ugly system that has to take place in order for people to get the freedoms that we so desperately want. I think, progress is being made. It's just slow. So I just wanted to jump in there and say, congratulations on being able to kind of ride that slow wave, because I fly off the handle way too much with this stuff, and you guys seem to be doing a good measured approach, like a bunch of sane people.
Yeah, I look, it takes a while. All of this takes a while, and where the people who are around now and have the ability to either grow at home or have the ability to have it on them, and not be arrested. Now that's the product of a lot of work, a lot of people who are not even around anymore. And so I don't want to, I don't want to take for granted of how I think how far things have moved, right? I don't want to take that for granted.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think you need to push forward. I still think you need to push forward, though. And we're not there. There's a lot of work to be done. I mean, how many states now? You have 40, basically, 42 states that it's illegal still. And
Yeah.
some people are more of the decriminalization route. I'm more of a fan for legalization. Regulation can suck.
What's the difference?
Well, I think that legalization. I think it should be completely all above ground. I think it should be more than. I think it should be more than me just not being able to get arrested for it. I think that the problem with legalization is that regulation is all over the place. Is all over the place. It's different in every state. There's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of problems in who has access to it and who has the money and the capital to play the game. And that turns off a lot of people in legalization. Normal had a good piece recently I was just reading, and and the writer on there was talking about how that decriminalization is becoming more, you're hearing more about people favoring decriminalization or over legalization. But it was saying that decriminalization doesn't address the root causes of a lot of the problems, and not just I'm not just decriminalization of marijuana. I'm talking about, or legalization of marijuana. I'm talking about like legalization kind of across the board of a lot of things. And, is decriminalization going to address root causes of problems in drug producing and kind of drug distribution states in Mexico and in South America and Latin America? Is decriminalization going to really change any of that that's going on down there? Or is decriminalization only going to help out the consumers who are privileged in cities and across the United States? So I want to see, for me personally, I would like to see legalization. I'd like to see legalization done, I guess, better than it is, and I'm willing to be patient in that. And I think that could be. I think it just needs reforms like anything else. We're only at the beginning. We're only at the beginning of this. This might take 30 years. I don't know. I do favor legalization. I think it should be regulated. I think there needs to be regulations on things. However, I don't think that those regulations should be crazy, that prevent ordinary people from having wine in your basement and selling it to a co-op or something like that. You shouldn't have to pay this big fee to play the game. It should be just like anything else. You bring your product to market. So I don't think we need to get crazy in regulation. And I think that there is a lot of regulations that they're just making it impossible. And a lot of states don't even know what to do about it.
Yeah.
It's been 4 years in Maryland. I think they just opened a dispensary somewhat recently in Maryland now. And it's just taken forever. The process has taken forever for them to even get like the, infrastructure in place for a medical program. So, the state just takes forever to do things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why we need to abolish it. That's I mean, that's my fantasy. I mean, that's where I fantasize about things. But I kind of live on that edge of chaotic anarchy, I guess. But I don't know. Because I think that there's other ways, there's other models that we can go about doing things. I think we're seeing those other models kind of pop up, and things are being sort of birthed into being and invented that allow us to share. Like I tweeted something out the other day. I forgot what it was, but it was something like, like why do we even need like these assholes in government debating about things that we care about, and we're letting them decide stuff for us? It's like, we can figure this stuff out just like between us, like between ourselves. But then again, it's like, when we get to it, it's like, well, there's hundreds of millions of people. So there needs to be some system in place where there's responsible leaders and, I like to look at it in the context of like Aboriginal type of shamanic cultures where there's like a chief or a shaman. It's like a group of wise old elders who we can look to sort of, be the voice of reason to lead us in the proper direction, because we're not getting that. And like you said, before, this stuff doesn't exist in a vacuum, where it's like, just decriminalize it, whatever. No, there's like other parts of the world, right? Like where we need to kind of worry about the well-being of people in Afghanistan, where there's like, the largest production of opium, and, these producer, all this kind of the side effects, the ripple effects that take place with all this stuff. It's such a complex thing, when you think about it. Some people on the outside might just think like, these guys are just a bunch of hippies that want to get high. It's like, well, no, I think the implications are a lot further than that, right?
Yeah, and I think if you get interested in drugs, it becomes, for me, it becomes more interesting everything else that exists outside of drugs. The drugs just become the thing that got you interested in it. But I mean, I love the politics of it. I love all the things that kind of the information side of it. I'm fascinated by all of that.
Yeah.
And how does it affect society? How does it, people, I don't think people realize how much they're impacted by drug policy. Really don't, and we just have bullshit drug policy still.
Yeah, no, it is.
How many things that we don't even know are affected by that? Healthcare. What are the side effects, the positive side effects that marijuana is going to cause that we don't even necessarily know about? What are all those? What is the value to society? You want to put a number to it. You want to put like GDP to it. What's the value outside of economic? Well, you could use the argument. You could say, well, how much more productive are people going to be, or how much happier are they going to be in their lives if they just have lower stress levels? And I don't know if you can put a value to that. How are they going to have a better relationship? How are they going to have a better relationship? How are they going to, if you smoke some weed once in a while, you're not as just likely to believe some asshole that's telling you things. Or you're going to try to understand someone's point of view a little bit more. And maybe they'll shut up and listen a little bit more and try to understand why they have the point of view that they have. I think those like kind of intangible things are going to be byproducts of changing drug policy. And I think we'll see them all over the place. People don't understand the value that harm reduction measures bring in. All they can do is talk about the bullshit of, oh, I don't want to spend taxpayer money in providing needles or harm reduction services, or how dare we have a center that lets people shoot up. They don't get it. They have a very superficial understanding of the kind of complexity of the whole situation. And so, yeah, what are the intangible things that we're not even seeing? And so those issues, all that stuff, it really affects everybody in society about how we structure, drug laws.
Yeah, it's so interesting though, because it's like, just listening to you say that, it's like, and we're talking about, what are we talking about here? It's like drugs. Like what? Like, I mean, it's such a weighted word. There's so much that comes along with that. If you just say drugs, like if you just walk around and ask 50 people what the first thing that come to their mind when they hear drugs, it's like, I wonder what would happen. I think I don't know. I mean, maybe we're in changing times right now where maybe we'll get some more positive answers, but I think maybe the average person is going to think about, oh, heroin overdosing or death or just terrible things that are going on. But I don't know. I mean, it's we're talking about some chemicals, that it could be like, if you just turned on the water and out of the water came, some every time you took a sip of tap water, it just made you feel better or something like that. Would that be a drug? Like, it's just a strange thing. It's like, there's obviously some tools out there that can help people if used in the right way. So what's the holdup here? Now, personally, for me, I think there's more of a nefarious, situation happening where, the powers that be, or the people that hold power, not just the state, but corporations, religions, any kind of institution that holds power, they kind of have a vested interest in keeping people kind of dumb, sick, and out of, not really experiencing the full capacity of life and their reality and their consciousness and their body, because they just, they benefit from them being consumers and just kind of, obedient workers and whatnot, and those sorts of things. I don't know if this is like necessarily an intentional thing where there's a bunch of guys sitting around in a room smoking cigars going like, ha ha ha, those peons, we got them working. It's like some kind of weird dystopian thing, but it's definitely the way that it's set up. It's definitely, that's kind of the treadmill that we seem to be going on. So I don't know if you agree or disagree with me on that. Well, I guess I could ask you, because it's my podcast. Do you agree or disagree with me on that?
I think that the nefarious aspects of it are probably money laundering and bankers and
right.
all of the cartel related stuff, and then
the banksters. Yeah.
No, I think I tend to think that it's mostly ignorance that fuels a lot of this. Whatever the saying is, don't mistake what's the word? Don't mistake bad intentions for ignorance, something like that. I think that the ignorance is tremendous.
Yeah, off the charts.
Not educated about this. This is what you get.
Right.
This is what you get. So I think that's a primary factor. I think that there are people who are making unbelievable amounts of money through black market, that just keep their mouth shut. Cartels are bringing you money. Money is getting funneled into politicians' pockets and back channels. I think that to not think that that's going on, I think is ignorant, and that's not. This isn't being conspiratorial, crazy-minded at all. I think that is a factor. Absolutely, I think that that's a factor. I think that it's generally ignorance. I think people are very scared of drugs, and I think politicians are just going to do what, for the most part, I think politicians are not going to go off too far and
right.
do that. They're not going to be elected. Someone's going to move in and say, how dare you talk about marijuana legalization when we have an opioid problem? That's just ignorance. That's just another type of ignorance, and you see that argument all the time in conservatives, and you see that in Maine right now. And I think that's all over the place right now. Getting back to what you were saying about the word drugs, that word doesn't bother me whatsoever.
Uh-huh.
I approach it from a plant, like an ethnobotany, plant science perspective. There's a lot of people who get offended if you use the word drugs, who get
Right.
offended if you call psychedelic a drug. That's not a drug, that's a medicine. I'm not getting into the PC. I don't get into that. I think sugar is just as much of a drug as any of these things. I think
Right.
caffeine is just as much of a drug as any of these. I think alcohol, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's a neutral word to me. It has no taboo. It it's 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 just a word. I could call them secondary metabolites if you want.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call them that. I see them as plant products, or I see them as synthesized, and I don't think synthesized things are any worse than anything else. It doesn't bother me about MDMA, or it doesn't bother me about synthesized psilocybin. I don't make that. It's a synthesized chemical, it's worse.
Yeah.
So I just see these as I see a lot of these. What's our relationship? What is our relationship that we have with this substance? It's no. I was just reading. A friend sent me the other day. He overheard something at an airport, and the person said, and he's like, take this or leave this. But he ended up looking it up. But it's like a third of Americans are have either like type 2 diabetes or are classified as pre-diabetics.
Mm.
And it's a CDC report. I'm looking it up right now. Let me see what it says. And approximately 84, this is an article on the cdc.gov. It says approximately 84 million American adults, more than 1 out of 3, have prediabetes. So when you have a society who just has garbage food, but unbelievable amounts of sugar in everything, and if you look at that as a drug, and you look at that as if you look at sugar in like an ethnobotanical sense, what is our relationship with this plant, with this drug? Okay, well, we put it in everything that we eat. Okay, no shit, you're gonna have this. It's not surprising. So
It's shocking. I mean, it's crazy. It's insane. Is what it's insane. Yeah.
It's crazy to think. To me, it's crazy to think that that's surprising that everybody has that 1 out of 3 people have prediabetes.
Right.
I mean, you give your kids 100 grams of sugar as soon as they wake up. And
well, parents are so stressed they just shove anything in their kids' mouth, shut them up, get them out of here. Here's the candy, here, take the iPad.
So it's not like the only reason I'm saying that is because like, what is our relationship with this compound? And we eat it all the time. We put it in everything, and so no shit that we have a condition that is going to we have a tremendous. To me, that's a tremendous problem.
You just kind of like you just kind of like semi blew my mind a little bit because of just the way that you said that. Like, yeah, like what is our relationship? Like that's such a powerful word and the correct word. I think if we're engaging in things and looking at it in terms of a relationship. Well, what is a relationship? It's like we're engaging in something that we have a bond with, and we're getting something from it, and we're giving something to it. We're feeding energy to this system of sugar, and it's giving us what in return? Diabetes. Like being in a toxic relationship, right? Like being with a partner who's just not good for you. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And so I think that that's how a lot of drug policy should be kind of looked at. Our drugs should be looked at, and what's the proper relationship? And public policy should kind of flow from that.
what is your goal / dream for Psymposia?
For do you mean for like the organization, or do you mean like things that I'd like to see
I
in
kind I
in
kind
kind of the
of
field?
yeah, like I kind of want to ask like the question I'm asking maybe is like what's like the fantasy of yours like for your organization, like what would you really like to see come to fruition that would just be
I'd like to see some people who want to fund us, because we're transitioning kind of half of the organization now into a nonprofit, into an educational nonprofit. So something that I want to see right now is funders, someone who has a good amount of money, who wants to see a nonprofit that exists in this field that's more than science on the psychedelic side. The
yeah,
science is being covered. The science
right,
is there are wonderful groups that are doing the science. However, I think that there needs to be I think there also needs to be uh, more of an educational group that's out there. I think that, and so we're educational in the sense of we're publishing points of view, we're having different conversations on things, we're exposing people to new ideas. I think we're trying to do activism in a way that engages, I guess, people's intellect in a sense. We're not out
Y-
there holding
right.
signs, and we're not there necessarily marching around. But I
Well,
think it's
I was just gonna say, if you don't mind me jumping in, I was gonna say, I think what you guys do is relatable. Like you're of like for I think there's one of the largest portions of our generation, the people that are going to be making the decisions. Like we're inheriting kind of this decision making thing. So I think you guys are like kind of like the cool kind of where it's at, entertaining, fun, relatable people that are doing something that communicates to our generation. I mean, that's just my opinion, but
yeah,
that's
yeah.
yeah. I
Well,
don't want to put words in your mouth, but I just wanted to say that. Yeah.
no, I think that is, I think it's important to do things that engage people, that are fun. I also think that there are plenty of projects that need to be in existence right now that are practical, and whether it's training therapists or whether it's developing a legal framework, not a legal framework, but a a legal network sort of for people who say who have been arrested but have no fucking idea that there's lawyers out there who may specialize in something like this. As someone who has been arrested and prosecuted, I was extremely lucky to have a friend who recommended a amazing lawyer who's so experienced in drug law defend me. I don't think a lot of people have that access out there. So there's
Right.
practical
Yeah.
stuff that I want to that needs to be done out there as well. But there's also I think projects that are like we did in New York, and that's like it's an after party. It's supposed to be a good time. People are supposed to come and connect and laugh and learn something and be a part of it. And so that's just as important.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's just as important. What I want for the organization um, I'm not looking to like I'm not looking to go ape shit and monetize and have ads everywhere and play that game of clickbait this fucking that. Um, I want to have, as far as the magazine aspect of Symposia, I want to keep that as much integrity as we can. I want to keep out advertising kind of as much as I can on that. And that's why we want to go the nonprofit route with this.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's it's in finding the funders who believe that there's more to science and that the science doesn't exist within a vacuum. It
Hmm.
doesn't exist within a vacuum at all. It You still need the outreach. You still need all of these other aspects of reaching people, of thinking about how you're going to do these centers, of getting making sure that you have access to people having these symptoms. There's all these new things that are going to be built up as the laws loosen. And, you know, when things become deschedulized, that is going to be super fascinating. And I don't know what the drop in schedule will be. I was just reading on Strassman's page that he seems to think that people are going to be shooting for Schedule 3. So it's going to be fascinating of the different things that are going to come out of this. And so those are areas that I think need attention. I think that there are so many people who are interested in all of this, and I'd love to create a platform for some of the best people to write about it, to create new projects about it. We're going to be coming out on December 4th. We've been creating a conversation series. It's not finished yet, but it's going to be about between 11 and 13 pieces, and it's all about ibogaine. So we're looking at it's the ibogaine conversation is what we're calling it, and we're looking at traditional use in Gabon, in Africa, and how this has been used. We are looking at sustainability of it. We're looking at safety of it. We're looking at patients. We are looking at practitioners. We're looking at kind of a full spectrum about ibogaine, because it's this, you know, you've probably been hearing more and more and more about ibogaine, and it's going to become amplified more as opioid abuse is a big. It becomes even bigger.
Right. Yeah, that's so important. Yeah.
So, and you know, ibogaine is very different than the traditional psychedelics. So there's more concern that goes into how it's administered and what does that look like. And so Jordan May, who works with us, he has been working on this series now since like July, and he's put a lot of time in it. And I think it's going to be really great, because it's going to be as comprehensive as we can get look at what is ibogaine, what are the social what's the social environment that it's in, what is the science of it, what does this look like. And so yeah, those things are valuable as well. It's invaluable to change how people think about drugs. That is extremely valuable to me. It's valuable to have drug education, and this is our version of drug education. It's not in a university. It's free for everybody, and it's looking at this emerging field, and it's fascinating. It's super fascinating, man. This whole area, it's exploding. It's
definitely, yeah. It's a new frontier.
It's a new frontier that's basically not taught in any universities yet. There's, you know, a select few universities who even acknowledge these things.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, because it could be kind of like career ending for some sorts of people in those areas, and you get into the academic fields and the science fields.
Yeah, what is that even all? Oh, I don't even.
Yeah.
Why if you're someone who's in academia, you can't talk about psychedelics.
It's the most unacademic thing.
That's unbelievable. That's like poison. That's like a poisoned environment.
Totally right. Yeah.
If you can't talk about this in an academic setting, that's a dystopia to me.
For sure.
And that's reality. That's the reality for a lot of people. The reality for a lot of people is they can't even talk about marijuana at their work. The reality is that a lot of women and mothers can't talk about anything out of fear of losing their children. That's something that's not really talked about a lot, and a lot of people don't.
So sad.
A lot of guys are not thinking about that at all.
Right.
But women who have benefited can't really talk about it, because we live in this fucked up society where where that is so taboo. You are just an awful parent if you took mushrooms or if you just enjoy taking LSD here and there. Then you're an awful parent. You are not fit to have your kids.
I mean, it's so backwards, it's just like, my childhood was a little rough growing up, like just, I guess, normal kind of family fighting and stuff like that. But it was, not so pleasant. And, now I'm so interested in all these things. And I've been trying to convince my parents for years to smoke marijuana or to try maybe psychedelics to alleviate depression. I've just always been trying to integrate it into the conversation and talk about it in a way in which they will actually listen to me. But it's hard to get through. And I could just think of like so many wonderful healing opportunities that families can have, that they could bond in a way that they really get to know each other over a shared experience, and that's so needed because the family is such an important part of growing up into a healthy world,
Yeah, and unfortunately, families can become extremely toxic environments as well. And yeah, absolutely. I think these things could be tremendously beneficial if done the right way, in just for family relationships.
Right. Yeah. And then, you think about it, it's like, if a family wanted to get together and say like, hey, we're going to have a mushroom ceremony, the whole family is going to get together and
I've heard people have done that.
I mean, that's wonderful. You know what I mean? That's a wonderful, beautiful thing. And I think you could have deep connections and good bonding with your closest, with your blood, with your relatives.
Right.
And then what's going to happen? Like a bunch of henchmen are going to come in and barge down your door with steel batons and beat you and take you into custody and throw you in a cage like an animal for engaging in this. Yeah. There's something wrong here. And just, I know I've kept you for a little while. I hope you have just a little bit more time.
Yeah, sure.
I wanted to get your opinion about, it's like with all of this trauma that's happening, right? Like it's so weird in a way that like, I hate to say this, but it's like, oh, thank God we have soldiers with PTSD because now we're getting, because now we're able to get MDMA approved by the FDA to say it's actually legitimately a medicine. But it's like, fuck, like, why did we have to go through all the hell and the torture and the suffering, to have these things be legitimized, So it almost seems like to me that it's like we kind of like the way that our culture or species or whatever is going is that we just have to enter into the darkness of shit in order to finally get walloped over the head so many times that we say, holy shit, we have to look at another avenue for healing or for therapy, so like it's weird in a way that as these like draconian laws and these things still exist, it kind of fuels the fire for the purpose for something like Psymposia to exist and to be the, to quote like Star Wars, to be the light that meets the darkness, to shed light on that. You know what I'm? Does that make
it, right?
Right? Exactly. Yeah.
That's the paradox of it.
Yeah. So do you see things continuing to be that way though? Like, do you think that that's the way things will go? It'll just kind of continue to take this path, until some things get so bad that eventually we'll have like a breaking point where we'll be able to integrate these things more into our society.
I think that things are going to progress really wonderfully. That's what I.
Yes. Optimism. I love it.
I think that that's what's going to happen. I don't think that things just naturally progress towards I don't think that just happens. I think that you need to make that happen. And I think there's a lot of people who are making that happen. And I think that yeah, I think you're going to see I think you're going to see psychedelics be prescribable in a very short period of time. I think that you're going to see just more people who know about them. I think education is an immunity to bad law. I think you'll get politicians who can start talking about this a little bit more. You'll hear politicians talk about this. You certainly will. It'll eventually happen. It will eventually happen. It's just that they're so taboo still. There's
Right.
so taboo still. There'll be more people who come out and talk about them. It'll loosen them up again. They'll be able to talk about them without the "ooh, it's 60s happened" and "ooh, all that baggage."
Right.
That
Man,
won't.
I'm laughing, man, because I as you said that, it just triggered something in my brain to think about. Have you seen the movie Lincoln by any chance?
The one with
Daniel
Daniel
Day-Lewis.
Day-Lewis.
Yeah.
I haven't seen. I have it on my computer, and I've been meaning to watch it.
It's really fun because as you're talking, it just made me think of you're right, like it's taboo and it's crazy, and we'll be like, there's a scene in the movie Lincoln where they're talking about giving rights to to abolishing slavery and giving the rights to the slaves to have a voting right, or to to be a member. And then one of the guys like stands up and he's like, "This is blasphemous." He's like, "Next thing we'll be talking about is women having equal rights." And everyone's like, "Oh no, no!" Like, everyone's in uproar. And it's like, just think about, like, we look at that and we're still experiencing like the like little itty bitty remnants of those sorts of racist and sexist things in our society today. But most of us still look back at that and say, wow, that was really fucking backwards and fucked up. So you're right. I mean, it's just like this fucking thing called time.
Our kids are going to look back and not even get this.
Right.
It's going to make no sense. It's going to make it. I mean, anybody who kind of like is turned on to marijuana, it instantly makes no sense. The government instantly has no credibility. These are a bunch of fucking liars. So it's easy for people who use marijuana to just, oh my God, this is just crazy. Yeah, I think our kids will look back and they won't even understand why we did this. It's
right. Yeah.
We're just we're too in it. Most people are too in it, too close to it to even see. And it's only the other idiots in history who were so backwards. It's never them. It's never us who are wrong. Even though when you look at history, you're like, oh my God, people, these, poor things. They thought this about the universe. They thought this about,
right. Yeah. They thought the what was it? The Earth was flat, right? And like, oh, the people who think the Earth is round is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you were like, if you believed in, that the sun was, we know now the sun is in the center.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the sun is not the center, right? But in all intents and purposes, the sun is the center of the solar system, right?
Yeah.
And so that point of view at the time is just like, you're a crazy person if you believe this. You're a heretic if you believe this.
Yeah, they literally burned people to death. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Catholic Church.
And, right. Yeah. They cut people in half. Do the most heinous shit imaginable. And it's so obvious to us. So I like to wonder, fast forward to our kids and their kids, what is going to be so obvious to them that we're doing now? I think drug policy is going to be one of those things about how we interacted with these things. I think probably guns and all that's going to, what? I mean, it's already like that for a lot of people. Like, what ain't it's craziness.
Yeah. Well, you're making me feel really good with a positive outlook here. I like that. Yeah.
Well, I run an Airbnb out of my house, and I get a lot of Europeans that come in here, and so I always ask them what their opinions are on some things, and it just doesn't make any sense to them. Does it?
Yeah.
They don't get it. Like, what do you mean that you have that amount of gun violence in Baltimore? My whole country doesn't have that in 5 years.
Right.
So ultimately I'm optimistic. What's the point of not being optimistic? I don't want to be naive. I don't want to be just like a naive idealist. But I think historically, you do see overall improvements, and then the whole thing just collapses anyways. So
you can leave you can leave the naive idealism to me. I'm a combination of naive idealism and pessimistic nihilism. So I don't know.
Absolutely,
schizophrenic asshole I am.
Yeah, so I'll be optimistic and say that I think that moving forward that these systems generally are going to improve, and then I'll be pessimistic and say the whole fucking country will probably collapse as well. I think you'll see a general decline in the United States.
Burn it down. Awesome.
Which I think will be a good thing for the world anyways.
What's that?
Which I think will be a good thing for the world anyways.
Yeah,
Maybe a little less involved.
Oh, totally. 100%. Yeah.
Some things.
Yeah. United States is just like a amped up frat bro that's just like raging at full speed, chugging beers. People are like, hey, you gotta calm down, bro. Calm down.
Yeah, it's chill out. It's trying to maybe if that we focus a little bit less on defense and military, maybe we could focus a little bit more on taking care of the people here, and maybe we wouldn't have as much suffering and illness and sickness and everything else that we have. Maybe we could focus on education a little bit more, and things would actually be a little bit better if we probably stress the military a little bit less. I think we need to do that.
Think for yourself. Question authority. Think for yourself. Question authority. Throughout human history, as our species has faced the frightening, terrorizing fact that we do not know who we are or where we're going in this ocean of chaos, it has been the authorities, the political, the religious, the educational authorities who attempted to comfort us by giving us order, rules, regulations, forming in our minds their view of reality. To think for yourself, you must question authority and learn how to put yourself in a state of vulnerable, open-mindedness, chaotic, confused vulnerability to inform yourself. Think for yourself, question authority, think for yourself, question authority, think for yourself, question authority, think for yourself,
shrouding all the ground around me is this holy girl above me. Black as older than a memory, blue as our new second sun. I stick my hand into the shadow, pull the pieces from the sand, try attempt to reassemble. Is it just who I might have been? I do not recognize the vessel, but the eyes seem so familiar, like phosphorescent desert buttons, singing one familiar song.
You know what to do if you love this show. Share it, like it, spread it with your friends. Tell a friend, tell a family member, tell a neighbor, tell a coworker. And if you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/MikeBrank. You can donate as little as $1 a month. Or you could go on iTunes and leave me a nice 5-star rating and review. Whatever you do, thank you for listening. Much love to you all. Peace.